Hey guys, I just wanted to welcome you all to the Paul Jr. Podcast. We're down here in Long Beach Island, New Jersey in our new location, and this is our first podcast here, and I'm pretty excited. So here we go.
So Paul, speaking of the showroom, I mean, obviously you look around, there's a ton of stuff. Tell everyone what people can check out when they come here.
Yeah, you know, when you come visit the showroom down in LBI, first of all, we got the Black Widow, we got the MLB bike, we got Build Off 1, Build Off 2, and the Yankees bike. And more recently, this car, the Zephyr, we built for American Collectors Insurance, which is looking pretty tight right now. And I collect all this crazy early transportation in Americana. I mean, it's just everything from, some of it's 125, 30 years old. I think what drew me so much to all this transportation related stuff is it reminds me kind of what I do now with motorcycles. It's all about marketing and advertising, right? So when I build a bike for MLB, I'm trying to sell the message of their brand through my creative process, which is really just rolling advertising. And all these really cool visuals, all these really cool porcelain signs, painted tin signs, even this Hudson sign over my head. All this stuff is really all pointing to the same direction as we're taking people today, which is, you know, it harkens back to 100 years or better of American advertising.
When did the collection start? Has this been ongoing or something recent?
You know, it's funny, this collection, when did this collection start? Really, probably about 8 years ago. And the funny thing is, as long as I've been doing design work, it was lost on me forever. Like, the stuff around me right now, in my mind, at one point in time, was kind of junk. It didn't have any bearing on how I had no feeling about it. And then I got into collecting cars, believe it or not, first. And it was shortly after the show went off the air. It was about 2000 and maybe 13 or 14. And man, I just got this bug, and I saw this Buick. We were up in upstate New York at a car show, and I saw this Buick, and I was like, man, I love that thing. And so I started looking for one, and I bought one. And the next thing you know, I got into Hudson's, and I had a massive collection of Hudson cars, and I hunted cars down. My wife will tell you, I didn't collect them, I hunted them. Very rare cars, Hudson, especially from the 30s. And man, I found all the rarest cars out there, and I bought them, and I had a big collection of them. Slowly, I sold them. And then, so I got that collecting bug bad. And then I started in with signs and realized, oh my gosh, me and signs have a lot in common. And that was it. Once I got into signs, the hooks were in, and then I just got out of control, because everything I do is a little extreme, to be honest with you. And once I got into this and I really understood what I was looking at, and I started to really appreciate and love the history of these things, I got so invested. And here I am today, and I've really narrowed the collection down to only the most rare and unusual pieces. And the best looking, if that makes sense. Graphics is a big part of what's valuable about these collectibles. And so it's just been a passion of mine that quite often gets out of control sometimes.
And with that, each one really has its own story behind it. I've seen you explain this to people when they come in and check it out. You know? Yeah,
I got to be honest with you. I've overpaid for some of this stuff because of the history I got with it, right? Like, I bought the story. But that's important to me, because now if you walked in here, I could probably spend 2 hours telling you every aspect of the history of every piece that I have. And I love it, to be honest with you. Like, I'll spend an hour with someone and just walk them around my showroom and talk about the Zeppelin that was built by Goodyear, talking about the sign that came off the Iroquois beer factory up in Buffalo, New York, my Hudson signs, my Indian stuff. I mean, there's so much history in here, it's crazy.
And with that, you know, when people come here, you've told me you want them to leave with an experience. You have all these antiques, but as you mentioned, you have the motorcycles, you have a whole car in here. you're going to walk people through. They can come and meet you, right? So this is a whole experience. Yeah. Come check it out.
Yeah, I would say what we really created here in Long Beach Island at this showroom in particular is an experience. You can see the bikes. You can see the signs. I'll quite often be here to talk to you about them. We just introduced the Zephyr that we just built for American Collectors Insurance. And it's interesting, whether you're a huge fan of the show, which people who come in and get to see the Black Widow, it's like a dream of theirs mostly, or just a little kid who's never seen one episode but sees the MLB bike because they love baseball, or sees the Black Widow and they see the chrome webs and they think in terms of Spider-Man and things of that nature. It's a wide open, imaginative place that really creates, I would say, an experience for people that maybe they have never gotten before.
And then if you look right over here, your wife's boutique room is attached to it. Pretty cool. So something for,
the whole family. Yeah, certainly. So we got a really unique setup here. We got my showroom, and then we got a nice big opening in the wall, and then my wife's showroom, essentially her boutique. And last year was the first year we had her up and running all summer, and it was really remarkable. I'd be standing here, I'd watch a whole family come in, and the guy starts looking around, and the next thing you know, the wife just beadlines right for the boutique. And it really it gives us something to give to pretty much everyone in the family. It's a nice family experience.
Isn't that what LBI is all about here too? I think a lot of people want to know what drew you to LBI New Jersey. Yeah. All those years in New York, you're in Jersey now.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I'm in New Jersey now. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but I'm here. I do love Long Beach Island for the fact that it is very family oriented. That's what drew me down here. I never even heard of LBI until I met my wife Rachel back in 2007. After a few years of dating, she brought me to the island, and I just, we always went to like Point Pleasant or Seaside. That was it for us coming from New York. We never got down this far, which really isn't that much further, but you take the causeway over and you're on an 18-mile island. You go left 9 miles, you go right 9 miles, and from pretty much any rooftop on the island, you could see the bay and the ocean. So it's a very quaint, very kind of small community. But it offers a lot, and it's the darling of New Jersey, in my opinion. I see people come here, and they're like, we never knew this was here. Especially during COVID, everyone who could not fly came to this island, and man, they bought houses, and it just really, I think there was a boom during COVID because they rented the first year and bought the next year, and we saw that with people that we know. And it just really grew. It's becoming more and more year-round here. But yeah, going back to it, when me and Rachel got married in 2010, we lived in Montgomery for all these years. And we bought a house down here in January of 20, right before COVID hit. And that was it for us. We started these businesses, and for the past 2 years, we've lived on the island. We love the schools here. The schools are quaint. They're small. There's 10 kids in my son's class, which is huge for me. Growing up, not being academically strong, being maybe in a school where there's like 25 kids in a class and feeling a little lost. Here, he gets all the attention he needs, and we love that. The teachers are great. And frankly, the people here are fantastic.
And really, in just a few weeks, come Memorial Day weekend is when this whole island really starts getting busy. And you really want to encourage people, hey, if you're in town with your families or whatever, come check it out. They might be able to meet you.
Yep. Yeah, Memorial Day is coming up, and I got to tell you, this is a fantastic island to visit. There's so much to offer here. You got Fantasy Island down the amusement park at one end. The other end, you got Beach Haven. I mean, Beach Haven's been, wait a minute. Fantasy Island, and then what's the other end?
Barnegat.
Yeah. So on one end of the island, you have Beach Haven, which has Fantasy Island for all the kids, amusement park, a lot of walking traffic. And then you go all the way down to Barnegat Light, and it's just like old LBI. It's a lot of trees, older houses. It's got a whole different vibe. So it's so weird. From one end of this island to the other, these little townships all have their own flavor. So there's something for everyone here. And certainly the ocean is spectacular. I mean, I've been all over the world. I don't know that I've ever seen nicer beaches. I don't even know why I'm saying this, because We like it to be a little quieter than it is in the summer, but the truth is you can come down here. I'm in the showroom quite often. People can meet me. I'm in and out, but man, last year I met a lot of people, a lot of fans, and really there's so much nostalgia right now for the show, because we've been around 25 years, being the first reality show, being around for so long and having that family dynamic. I'm amazed by the stories I hear from people about how American Chopper has really affected their lives on an overall basis.
Yeah, does that ever get old? Because I've seen people in here, families, and they see you and they're like, you don't know what this show did for me. This is before the internet. This is before all this stuff came out. I mean, that's got to be a great feeling when you hear that from people stopping in.
Yeah, when I look at the impact American Chopper has had on the globe, really, I mean, certainly here in the States, but because we had such a global audience, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, people have such positive things to say, how we've really motivated people to be what they are today. I know that sounds weird, but whether they're welders or lawyers, somehow, in some way, especially in the idea of people tapping into their creative process, our show showed them that it was okay to do that. And then it was also okay to not have a perfect family dynamic. And so I think that combination was very endearing, and I think that's why we've had so much staying power, even compared to other shows of our time period. We seem to stick for people. We're almost like family to the people that come in here, and it shows every single time they walk in. It's almost like you hear the same exact thing every time. So that's a great honor, and we're just excited to have a location like this where people could come and visit.
And with American Chopper, it was so raw and authentic and just real. It was very real what everyone saw. And here you have this podcast now where it's almost like you get to be your raw, authentic, real self. Do you see like how,
I think this podcast is good because it does kind of release me to be myself. I think maybe I've been kind of conservative in the way I do things, especially from a social media standpoint. That's just my nature. But I think people are interested in hearing, not just the motorcycle guy or the son, but certainly the father and husband, kind of where things are at today, what's going on, what's important, because everyone who watched all those years ago when I was pretty much a kid have all grown up with me now, and the relatability is off the charts because we're all married, we all have kids, we all got problems, right? So I think that's going to be a lot of what we talk about on this podcast.
Yeah, and with that, of course, you are a dad, you have a son. Talk about the relationship you have with Hudson and how that's been. He's, still young, figuring things out, but what's it like being a dad?
Yeah, it's interesting. I love being a dad. It's my favorite thing. I got to be honest with you. I love spending time with my son. I make breakfast for him every morning. I bring him to school and pick him up every day. That's pretty remarkable, really. And, everyone knows of the tumultuous relationship I've had with my father through the years. And sometimes, you can only do so much because it takes two people to have a relationship. But certainly I've looked at some of the things that maybe didn't work for us, and I've said, I'm not doing that. So I've really been very conscious of being there, loving on my son, maybe too much sometimes, not so much, but he's an only child. So, me and my wife are with him. If he's not in school, we're together. And so, but it's a great dynamic. And, in a lot of ways I've learned what not to do from my father. And again, that's not a knock on him. I'm not trying to beat up on him, but I don't think my father had a great upbringing as far as he only has to work with the tools that he has in his hand. And I feel like growing up, he wasn't given much. And so I think that's a hard thing to carry into adulthood. Then you become a father and you try, because he certainly did try, and we had great times growing up. But as things progressed in the years, our dynamic got tougher and tougher, and so I think he has always been up against a lot. My father. That's the way I would look at it. So from that standpoint, I don't really look at our dynamic and have animosity. I just look at it for what it was and say, how can I learn from this dynamic and not pass that on to my son?
And don't you feel like times have changed nowadays too? Because just even with my group of friends, it seems like dads are making a way more commitment to be with their kids. They're spending more times with their kids. Would you say you're seeing that?
Yeah, I think we are today seeing dads spending more time with their kids. I think about when I was a kid, dads worked. They weren't home mostly. They were working 2 jobs almost always. They were trying to provide, and they had an imperfect way of doing it. Think about it, like things are so different now. Not that people don't work hard, but I think there's a real there's so much more education in the area of family dynamic and what's healthy and what's not. Back in the day, I don't think there was as many tools out there. And for me, we've been able to tap in a lot of that and understand that, hey, this is what's important. And I got to tell you something more recently. Man, don't blink, because my son is now 9 years old, and we've been saying this from day one, like he's going to grow up fast, and he's halfway to 18. And we just look at him and we're like, man, and he's tall. He's like the tallest kid in his class. So he's like, looks like he's 2 years older than he is. And so we are really trying to cherish every moment. I will say this, the one thing I do is love on him a lot. I love on him. I tell him I love him, probably too much. He's probably tired of hearing it. But I think that's a really important aspect, because you could be imperfect as a father, but if your kid knows how much you love him all the time, I think it goes really far.
And doesn't it go even further to be present too?
Yes.
I mean, just to be there. Like you're picking him up, waking up with him, you're there. He's going to look back and say, Dad was there.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. There's no replacement for your time. And to be there for your children is everything. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to be there and work through that relationship, because in your absence, it's not good to be absent from that situation. And I know some people have to travel, some people have jobs that cause them to be everywhere, but and in that case it is what it is. But man, I'll tell you, you can't get time back. I'm telling you, you can't get time. Look, I'm 50, right? I'll be 50 this year. When this show started, I was 25, right? So that gives you some perspective. Like, life is short and it goes quickly. So I think you got to really be focused on your priorities, and family is number one.
Do you think you became a dad at like a great time too? Do you think being a dad while you were still on the show would have worked?
Yeah, right. It's funny, because I always felt like I'd be a dad young. I thought I'd get married young. It just never happened. And I always was like, I don't get it. I'm built for marriage and kids. I really was like that. But at the same time, the early years of American Chopper, really that whole first 10-year run, boy, we were on the road, man. There was no room for kids when I look back. And certainly now, I'm an older dad. I had him at 40. But I'm totally settled. I have them at 40. I'm settled. I could kind of make my own schedule, which is really nice, and do what I want to do. I'm self-employed, and so it gives me total freedom to be and do whatever I want to be and do concerning being a father. The years of American Chopper in the pure chaos of the situation would not have afforded me that. So these things happen for a reason. It's all like divine appointments,
And so, of course, your dad, and now you're also a husband, and you're juggling a business too. And I think a lot of people out there are just like, they struggle with that, What's your take on that, based on the things that you've experienced, juggling all the things that you got going on?
Yeah. Yeah, juggling business and family can be tough. Fortunately, we work from home. We do a lot of creative stuff. And me and my wife do everything together. So we are like the dynamic duo. We're like a powerhouse couple when it comes to anything. So we both have our giftings. I will say at times it is hard to put work aside, because we work so closely together all the time. So like the day's over, but it's not really over almost ever. And we could always be doing more work. And so sometimes we got to manage that when it comes to our son, and making sure, okay, he's home from school. We know we got to finish this project, but we got to make time. So I feel like it's a balancing act for us,
Yeah. And, with that, it's like you've been able to make it work. What would you tell people who haven't, or struggle, or they're just like, man, overwhelmed by it? Because you have business experience, experience, all of that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm very fortunate, because there's people out there, like I said, both parents work and they have to, right? Some 2 jobs, both of them work 2 jobs, and they got 3 kids. and they're trying to make it all work out. But the truth is that it's very hard probably for them to find a balance, you know? And I feel bad for that situation, because the truth of the matter is the parents are doing the best they can. They're trying to provide the best life for their kids, but there's no way they're not missing out on certain aspects of their life that, frankly, you just can't get back. You can't turn back the clock. So, you know, it's funny. This is the way I would describe life, right? Someone said before me and Rachel got married, a friend of mine said, listen, let me give you some advice. And I've given this advice to people all over. Anytime someone says they're getting married, make sure you're present for your wedding. Because so many people, is so much hype and there's so much planning, even for the guys. You know, I know the women do a lot of the planning most of the time, but like, and then the day comes and it's overwhelming and it's over. And you're like, what just happened? And so, you know, someone said that, and I would say that for life, that same exact thing, because I applied that to when we got married. We had the best wedding in history. It was the best. We enjoyed every moment of it. We were very present, very conscious of everybody there, and the fact that this is only for a moment and we should enjoy it. Life is kind of the same way. It's only for a moment and we should enjoy it, and we should make sure our priorities are right. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect, believe me. But those are things that I think that people should really be working on.
Dude, you've gotten, and you look like you're in great shape here. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are wondering, Paul working out, Paul running.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
You're doing something a little interesting. I don't know how much you want to go into here, but a new sport you've picked up.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I've in the past couple years, I've gotten heavily into pickleball. Nobody knows that about me because I never told anyone till just now. But you know, we had a guy coming into the shop who would pick my guys up at the airport, right? This guy's name's John, and he would bring the guys in from the airport when we were building bikes. You know, we fly Brendan in a lot, my sheet metal guy, and he'd say, "Hey, Paul, come on, we got to play some pickleball," you know, and I'd be like, "John, beat it, man, get out of here with this pickleball stuff," because I just didn't even know what it was, you know. But eventually, they put courts in by our house. We went down there to check it out. And me and my wife joined a tournament first day before we even picked up a pickleball paddle. Gave us some motivation to kind of get into it. And we got into it, man. And for about a year, I played pretty consistently, several days a week, and I was into it. But it wasn't till about a year into it that I started getting better and better, that I realized that this thing had almost no end to it, that I can continue to improve. And then that was it, man. It just got me like the signs. I mean, it just got me like everything else. It's like building motorcycles, collecting signs, and pickleball are like my three crazy obsessions almost. But the byproduct of that has been phenomenal, because it's given me, well, first of all, let me just set the floor. I've had type 2 diabetes for about a decade now. And I really wasn't doing anything from after high school until 3 years ago. And that wasn't good for me, you know, and I wasn't going to the gym. I had a gym membership. I was paying $50 a month for nothing. And once this pickleball thing kicked in, man, all of a sudden I was getting in shape. I wasn't really trying to get in shape. I know that sounds crazy. I just got way into the whole idea of it. And before you knew it, I was like, I got lean, I got strong. I realized I could start keeping up with my 9-year-old all of a sudden, which really was a big aspect. And here's a sport that I like scoffed at for years. And now I'm obsessed with it. And it's something that I could play at a very high level, that there's really no end to. And so now I'm like, man, I'd like to be a pro. I don't want to go on a circuit. I just want to play at that level. And you know what it gave me? My competitive edge back that I had in high school, right? I power lifted, won all kinds of trophies. When I was 14, I won state and national bench press records. I was captain of the team all the years of middle school and high school, right? I played fullback and linebacker. We had the fastest 4x100 in the area. I was used to winning. And then high school ended. I didn't go to college because I worked for my father. And that was it. I lost my competitive edge from that perspective, you know? Now, I applied it to building and competition and stuff like that. I pushed myself, but it wasn't in physical, you know? And all of a sudden, I'm like beating people that was beating me last year. And now I'm into my third year, and now, like, you know, so it's really building up in me this whole idea of get it back. And that's our theme. Get it back is the theme. We're going to talk about it even on this podcast, and it's still going to be the Paul Jr. podcast, but we're going to have a theme going of get it back, where we talk to people who have maybe at times felt like they couldn't do that. Maybe they're overweight, dealing with health issues and stuff like that, and got into a sport of some sort and how it changed their life. And it's never too late to get it back. That's the message, because here I am at 50, and I'm lean and I'm fast and I keep up with my son and I'm having fun at a sport that I can play competitively, and it's actually a pro sport. So I'm pretty excited about it. And I'm actually 3 weeks I've been out because I hurt my shoulder a little bit. I haven't had too many injuries, which is great, but I'm pretty pumped to get back into it.
And of course, like you said, there's the physical side of things, right? And how you get all these physical benefits. But also, like you said, you're closing in on 50, and this is a time where I think a lot of people don't really they start taking their health for granted.
Yep.
Like you said, you got a young kid, you got to move around, but how, as much as the physical, how much does this help you mentally too, to get out there and exercise and be active outside? Tell me about that side of things.
Yeah, the mental side of getting in shape and getting out, life can be challenging, relationships, business, all the dynamic. And if you don't have a physical outlet, it could really build up in the ways of high blood pressure, anxiety, depression, you name it. I mean, people are, especially at my age, 50, a lot of people have closed the door on the idea that they can, well, frankly, get it back. And the truth is you can in all kinds of ways. For me, it's been pickleball. So it's never too late. It really isn't. I'm living proof. And the weirdest thing, I didn't set out to get in shape. It just happened through me getting involved in pickleball. And then once you realize that the byproduct of it is you being healthy and fit, and frankly, being around a lot longer potentially for the people you love. It's a pretty awesome thing, and anybody can do it. That's the thing I'll say about pickleball. It is the most inclusive sport in the world. It's also the fastest growing sport in the world. And the inclusion is what I love about it, because the age and demos all over the place, and people play it competitively. You show up, there's always people there. It's a very inexpensive sport. You don't need a lot of gear for it. It also has a spectacular social aspect. You meet new people. I didn't set out for that. I'm not really looking to meet new people, but I did. And it's been enriching for me. And I think for a lot of people, especially coming off the heels of COVID, people are very, introvert from that whole situation still. And so, I think during COVID, pickleball really exploded, because it's something almost anyone can play, and it was an outdoor activity, so it was okay to do it, and people really got hooked into it at that point in time. So I think that's what's caused the explosion. But certainly I would recommend it for anyone to at least try. Some people play at a high level, some people play recreationally just for fun, and whatever about it is that draws you to it, I'd say at least give it a shot.
And I think it's interesting, like you said, a type 2 diabetic, that can lead to so many issues. How has this helped, with your diabetes?
Yeah, so being a type 2 diabetic for all these years, the pickleball has helped tremendously with my A1C. It's just brought my A1C down. Certainly on a daily basis, it's, with diet and exercise, and I'm not always great on my diet, so the exercise really helps, It's made a huge difference in my overall feeling, how I sleep. Basically it affects every aspect of your life.
Very cool. Let's get back to the showroom here. Some of the builds you got. Obviously, you mentioned when I first came, the Black Widow. Bam, there it is. It's like so iconic. It's what really launched American Chopper. Do you have a favorite here in the showroom, or like one that stands out or has some meaning to you?
You know, it's interesting. Everybody always asks what's my favorite bike. It's just a common question. People are so curious about that because I think for themselves, they probably have multiple bikes that they really love, but quite often they have one they love the most. And usually it's because of the theme, and it's because they related to that bike more than any other bike, whether it be the 343 Fireman that died in 9/11, that tribute, or the Black Widow, which was the first of the series, which really grabbed people because it was the first episode. It's kind of what got them hooked on American Chopper, or MLB because it represents all of Major League Baseball. But for me, you know, the only way I could describe it is they're all like kids. Now, I only have one kid, but I can imagine if I had 5 kids, I would love them all, right? But they're just different, right? They all have different personalities. They have different meanings. And I'm talking about the bikes, not kids. You know, like MLB to me is like one of the best branded bikes we've ever done. It's so clean, it's so crisp, it's so right, exactly what they were asking for. And then you have like the build-off bike here in the showroom. The first build-off against OCC and Jesse James. That was live in Vegas at the Hard Rock. It was the most pressure I've ever felt in my life in a competitive situation. And what you see is a product of that. We went above and beyond 2 times to make sure that we were going to walk away with a win. That's how invested I was in that particular bike, you know. And then the Black Widow is just it's like the firstborn, you know. It's not really, because I built bikes before it, but when I look at it, I say, man, that's the first. That's my firstborn. So, and I got to tell you, that's just sitting here in the showroom, bikes I'm looking at. I mean, there are so many bikes that mean so much. The bike that's in the 9/11 memorial that represents the new World Trade Center. That was such a tremendous honor to have any part in. Never mind to build it, and then now it lives down in the memorial. It lives down in the museum, which is phenomenal. You know, then we got the Statue of Liberty bike. It's at the Statue of Liberty. I mean, we got some stuff out there that they've been become national monuments, or at least reflective of national monuments, which to me is huge. So they all have these different purposes, all the charitable ones, Make-A-Wish. I mean, come on, you know, it's just things of that nature. They're invaluable in a way, right? So, but it is all a big body of work that really represents 25 years of doing it, you know?
And with all that, do you ever look back and you're like, man, the global impact that these motorcycles have had, you know? You're representing a brand, you're telling a story, and they've stood the test of time all these years later too, you know?
Yeah, you know, the global impact of American Chopper to me is kind of like staggering. I don't know that there's ever been another show like it. There's been great shows. There's been shows that have been around for a really long time, but we were just pioneers in our approach in what the show was. Frankly, the first reality show, I think you can check that against anything and realize that, yes, there was like Big Brother and Survivor, but was that a reality show like ours? No, it wasn't. Those were, you put, you know, people that you know aren't going to quite get along in a room together or on an island, and you're going to have fantastic television. This was cameras showing up in a dingy little shop in Montgomery, New York, in some kind of basement that flooded, and you know, and we started building amazing things, and the family dynamic was never seen before on television. The outrageous fights and things of that nature. So the impact that it's had is it's beyond my comprehension. And I see what people say and do for the show, what they think, what they, you know, how it impacted them, but I don't think I have any sense of really the reach and scope of what American Chopper has meant globally.
And with that, you know, the whole cast and your family too, what are those relationships like still, you know? I think after all these years, people want to know.
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, man, team, cast, we had like 20 characters on American Chopper. You know, obviously me, Mikey, and my father were the main characters. Then you had like Vinny, Rick, Cody. And then you had like 10 other characters that people really liked, because a lot of people related to the guys that weren't involved as much, but they related to their personalities. And so we just had such a tremendous dynamic and character base. And it's funny because even at the time you saw other networks, including Discovery, trying to recreate it, because how can you blame them? Because it was on fire. And they just couldn't recreate it. They wouldn't get 3 episodes off the ground and the show was canceled. And you could see they were trying to get people to argue like us. The level of authenticity that came from us, I think, it really spoke to the staying power of the show. People just got invested early. They liked it. They didn't like it. Whatever it was about it, they couldn't stop watching. And you got to remember, too, it's not like today where there's a million points of content. Internet wasn't what it is today. You had to go to Discovery Channel at 9 o'clock on Monday nights, and there was no DVR. We didn't even have high-def television yet, and watch American Chopper. And that's what people did. And that's where you were able to quantify these big numbers for our ratings that we got back then, So, guys, I really appreciate you listening. And, my idea is to be doing more of these. There's so many things to talk about. I got a lot going on in this head of mine. And I feel like I have a lot to say, and I haven't really said a lot in a long time. So I think it could get interesting. I have all kinds of ideas for guests for the podcast. Everywhere from, different characters from American Chopper that I'm sure you guys would love to hear me interview, to different celebrities, different athletes, different people in the area of health and wellness. I think we can be pretty diverse in this podcast and have a little something for everyone. So I appreciate you listening, and stay tuned.